Let's talk about wealth, poverty, and healthcare. We've known for a while that the American Health Care Act, dubbed Republicare, Ryan Care, some people want to call it Trump Care, unclear exactly how involved Trump was with the writing of it, although recently Paul Ryan says Trump was very involved. We've known for a while that the AHA would primarily help rich investors and hurt many of the people who actually voted for Donald Trump, people in the working class. We've known that for a while intuitively. We've known it from looking at the bill proposal. But Donald Trump himself has actually come out now and admitted that the new Republican health care bill that he favors would be really good for rich people and really bad for many of Trump's working class voters. You might remember, as I told you yesterday, that Donald Trump was interviewed on Fox News by Tucker Carlson. And yesterday we played some clips related to the wiretapping claims. I have another segment of this interview that I want to play for you today. During the interview, Tucker Carlson asked Trump, what do you think about all the criticism that the health care bill is going to help the wealthy and hurt lower and middle income people? And Trump, without missing a beat, says, yeah, I know that that's what the bill will do, arguing this isn't the final bill, but readily admitting that that is exactly what the result of the bill as written would be. Take a look.
This bill has as one of its centerpieces a tax cut for investors that would primarily benefit people making over $250,000 a year. Already done pretty well in the past 10 years, as you know.
Yeah.
A Bloomberg analysis showed that counties that voted for you, middle class and working class counties, would do far less well under this bill than the counties that voted for Hillary, the more affluent counties.
I know.
It seems like maybe this
preliminary,
isn't consistent with the message of the last election.
No, a lot of things aren't consistent, but these are going to be negotiated.
Yeah, many of the things that Trump is doing are not at all consistent with the message of the election. We've been looking, Pat, for any instance of Trump being honest. We got it. It's 29 seconds with Tucker Carlson admitting that much of what he's doing legislatively or attempting to do is not at all consistent with the message of the campaign, readily admitting that with the explanation that nothing is finalized so
Right.
far.
Everything seems backwards here. You have Donald Trump being honest for once, and you have Tucker Carlson seeming to argue for liberal ideals, that there's been a massive redistribution of the wealth to the top 1% over the past 10 years.
Which there has been, no doubt about it. And Trump knows all of it, apparently, folks. Now, Trump's position that this is all just temporary and preliminary, it's not really the attitude of many of the Republicans that are pushing this bill. Paul Ryan and lots of other Republicans seem very proud of the bill. They want to see it pass in a condition, in a state as close to the initial proposal as possible. We've seen that ass-eating grin that Paul Ryan had on his face at the beginning of the first press conference where he held up the bill and said something like, here it is, this is what I've been working towards my entire career. Trump just doesn't want to be responsible for the awful health care bill, even though at this point so many people, including Trump and Ryan themselves, have acknowledged, yeah, Trump was involved in the formulation of this bill. So either they're lying, and Trump didn't really come up with any of the tenets in the bill, because he's not really what you call a, quote, policy guy, or Trump did have input into the process, and maybe that's why the bill is so bad, and now Trump is trying to back out of taking or receiving any credit for it. For the remainder of this entire interview with Tucker Carlson, Trump didn't say anything else to address the way in which the American Health Care Act will screw over middle and lower class people. It was acknowledged by Trump. It was admitted by Trump. It was written off as preliminary and not mentioned again. I'll remind you, an analysis by health policy experts has figured out that the American Health Care Act in its current form would add $1,542 to the cost of the average enrollee per year, and that number would increase over time. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 24 million people, Americans, will lose coverage by 2026. And there's been an analysis done by Think Progress when we talk about life or death. A Think Progress analysis estimates that somewhere around 17,000 people who would be okay, or at least alive under Obamacare, could die next year if the Republican health care bill is passed, and that this number would only grow over time. Trump knows at this point, right, Pat, that this plan as proposed would be a disaster for Americans.
I think so. That's why he didn't even try to defend that. He said a lot of things aren't consistent, which is perhaps the worst argument I've ever heard for anything.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about what will make Trump supporters jump ship. If they lose their Medicare coverage, or Medicaid, I guess it would be,
Could be either.
Yeah, if your pocketbook is affected, that's one of those things that impacts you so personally that you would have to.
I hope you're right, because what you're saying is perfectly logical, but I still think that they're going to sit around and find somebody else to blame. It's really sad that most of Trump's voters won't even be exposed to this information, minus, the small percentage of the country that watches Tucker Carlson. But many of the Trumpists that are exposed to the reality will probably rationalize it or find somebody else to blame.
Because it's tough to admit that you're wrong, especially when you've been holding this guy up for the past year or two as this saint-like figure.
Yes.
And now you have to change your perception of who he actually is.
Buyer's remorse, cognitive dissonance, it's all happening, overlapping biases and heuristics at play here, and we'll be covering it.
Gamefly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, you can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees, and our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.